Hey, are you perfect? Yeah, I didn't think so. Do you expect yourself to be perfect? Yeah, thought so. We as leaders get so stuck when we are afraid of failing. So how do we learn to fail forward? How can we be released of this burden of being afraid to fail? Let's dive into it today. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Culture Keepers podcast. I'm Kara List, your leadership coach, and we are here again discussing another topic with the goal of empowering leaders like you to cultivate a thriving workplace culture where your people are happy and high performing. Think about that. Your people are happy and high performing because of the culture that you cultivate. And we're going to work through that together today. Part of that is modeling how to fail. And man, is that hard. We're going to talk today about this concept of failing forward, which you probably heard before. It's kind of a fun phrase to say, failing forward. It's not a fun thing to experience, but it's a neat little phrase. So I wanted to start by giving a shout out to one of my lady leader friends. Her name is Cassie, and she lives in Dallas, and she is rocking it in leadership in multiple arts organizations in Dallas, Texas. And here's something I love about Cassie is that on her Instagram, every Friday in her stories, she has a Failure Friday story post. And it might be one, it might be many. It depends on how many times she has failed that week. And she just shares them. She shares the way that she has failed. And sometimes they're like cute and funny, but sometimes she shares like real, serious, deep, vulnerable things that she has experienced that week. And her message to everyone is to keep failing. And I just love that. She is a great example of failing forward in leadership. I love you, Cassie. You're an awesome leader. Keep it up. But it's an interesting thing that we don't like to accept as leaders that in order to grow, we often have to fail. But this is the pattern of our lives. I mean, if you have children, if you've ever seen a child, you know that there are so many stages of their life that they have to fail in order to thrive, right? They have to fall down in order to learn to walk. I have a 5-year-old right now. He is going into kindergarten this fall. And so we've been working on things, casually around here, like writing your name. And it is just amazing to me how he is just full of fear of failure as a 5-year-old. And he's like such a happy little dude. But yet we sit down to do it. And if it is not perfect, he just crumbles. He crumbles. And I keep saying to him, like, buddy, it is okay. You are 5. Like, you have to make an imperfect O so many times before your hand has the grip strength, right? Like, has the muscle memory, before your brain and your hand is connected, before you have that fine motor, all the things that it takes for you to hold a pencil and draw an O. And no one expects you to do it perfectly as a 5-year-old, but for him, it is paralyzing. And I keep on telling him, like, don't quit, right? Don't be stuck here. Keep going. This is part of the process. We see it. We know it. It's a part of our entire being from childhood. But yet as adults, we struggle so much to embrace that in our adulthood, in our leadership. I'm about to share with you my favorite quote. This is it. This is my favorite quote. It is a quote by Danny Meyer, who is a famous restaurateur. He started Shake Shack restaurants and plenty of other successful restaurant chains. And he said this: "The road to success is paved by mistakes well handled." I'm going to say it one more time. The road to success is paved by mistakes well handled. He did not say the road to success is paved by mistakes. That's not the quote. That would be a pretty hopeless quote. He said that the road to success is paved by mistakes well handled. It's not what happens in the mistake. It's not a series of mistakes that adds up to success. That's not how it works. How it works is you fail, and then you take what you've learned, you take what has happened, and you handle it well. You decide, this is what happened, and so therefore I'm doing this next. And that is what paves the road to your success. There are so many great examples of this. Some of these stories you might know, some of them you might not know. Did you know that Walt Disney was fired from a job early on when he was like in newspaper editing and work like that because he was told, I am not kidding, he was told that he wasn't imaginative and that he didn't have any good ideas. That is what he was told. Years later, fast forward, he created this fun little mouse character. He presented it to MGM, and they assured him that a mouse would fail, that no one is going to get behind a mouse. And this is really funny. Specifically, I read this article that said that the reason why they said a mouse wouldn't work was because it would get on the big screen and it would scare all the women. Whatever. Anyway, they said a mouse wouldn't work. Michael Jordan did not make his high school basketball team. He didn't even make the team. And this one's probably my favorite. Steven Spielberg didn't get into film school 3 times. Applied not once, not twice, 3 times. The great Steven Spielberg did not get into film school 3 times in a row. So what did those people do? Did they sit down and say, well, I guess that's that, right? Maybe they had bad interviews. Maybe they had bad tryouts, right? Maybe their skills weren't honed. Maybe they presented it wrong. They saw, whatever it was, they saw that moment in time as not a failure that defined them, but a failure that was just the next step on their road to success. And they went on to be, obviously, as we know, very successful. It paved the way. So we are often afraid of failing because we will think it defines who we are. We think our failures define us. Instead of seeing our failures as not defining us, but clarifying for us who we have yet to become. And when you think about driving, when you think about being on the road today, my family, we went to a lake. We live in Central Oregon, and we live in the Cascade Mountains, and it's incredible. And in the summer, they open all the access roads because they're covered in snow all the way until basically June. So they open up these access roads so you can get to the mountain lakes. And I'm talking like crystal clear, beautiful mountain lakes that are just surrounded by this gorgeous scenery. But as you're driving up these access roads, you do not have very great service. And we are so used to our GPSs, right? We're so used to our navigational tools that all of a sudden when we're in the mountains and we don't have them, we forget, like, how are we supposed to get somewhere? I remember my friend had a wedding in Buffalo, New York, when I was living on the East Coast, and I was living in Virginia, and I had printed out my MapQuest directions. Do you remember printing out MapQuest directions or using an actual map? Those are the days. So I used these map directions, but it was late at night, and I remember getting lost, and it was dark, and I didn't know where I was. I called my husband, who was back in Virginia, and on my flip phone, and I was like, I'm lost. I don't know which way I went wrong. And so he's like getting on his computer, trying to figure out where I am based on what I'm telling him, like this massive effort to reroute me back to my path, right? We are so thankful to have GPS today, but could you imagine if we got lost today up in the mountains, or if I had gotten lost that night, turned the wrong way, what would have happened if we just turned off the car and said, well, I guess that's it. I guess our story ends here. This was fun, guys. This was good, but it ends here, right? That's ridiculous. That's silly. No, you turn around, right? You go a different path. And friends, we do this when we fail. We want to sit down and quit. We want to turn off our car and decide that that's our story. I guess it's over. Instead of just turning around and saying, well, that just wasn't the right way. We'll go a different way. So failing doesn't actually hold us back. It just provides a more clear direction for where to go next. What if we actually thought of failing like that? That is failing forward. But maybe you're thinking, Kara, yeah, those people failed themselves, but I'm afraid of failing others. First of all, welcome to the club. And secondly, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you will fail other people. You'll do it more than you would like. This is just a part of life. I have another quote I love, and it's so good. Leadership is learning to disappoint people at a rate that they can absorb. It's not never disappointing people. It's learning to do it at a rate that they can absorb. So leadership isn't modeling perfection. We don't want our people to feel this burden that they have to be perfect because they see a false picture of us being, quote, perfect, right? That's not reality. That's not real life. Instead, we want to model for them mistakes well handled. We want them to see us make a mistake, us to say, hey, I made a mistake. I failed you guys. I failed this team. I even disappointed myself. But you know what? We're not going to stay here because it happened. We're not going to be a rear view mirror boss. By the way, if you don't know what that means, go ahead and check out last week's podcast episode where I talked about 7 signs that you might be a bad boss. One of those is the rear view mirror boss, where you are looking back at what has happened and you can't see a solution because you're so busy focusing on what happened behind you. If you can model behavior that says, yep, it happened, can't change it, right? What are we going to do? We can't change the past. So instead, we look forward. We now have a more clear direction. We know not to go there. We're going to keep moving in this direction. Here's some solutions. Let's go. What do you think that's going to do for your team? Yeah, they're going to take more risks. They're going to feel the freedom to make mistakes. And in that freedom, probably they will make fewer mistakes, right? They will continue to learn, because failing forward isn't just bandaging up what happened. It's learning from it, right? The well-handledness isn't just a mental shift, not just okay, I'm just going to get over it. I'm not going to feel guilt and shame over it. That is part of it, but it's also, well, what have I learned? And so what can I apply? And in that, your path to success, your road is being paved by mistakes well handled, that probably further along the path now, you will make fewer mistakes because you've already learned those lessons. Friends, allow your people to learn the lessons. This is leadership. It is coaching them. It is not telling them what to do for success. It is coaching them so that they can become leaders themselves. We do not want people to just try to mirror false perfection, right? We just don't want people who will do what we tell them to do, right? That's not what we want of our people. We want them to grow in their leadership skills. I mean, for goodness sake, we want them to grow so much that they have to leave us, that they have grown to be such great leaders that they can move on and lead others. This is culture keeping. This is culture. This is dropping the rock of culture into the water, your impact, and it ripples. It affects these leaders that affect these leaders, and you have an impact that extends far beyond the people you have met to people you will never meet, because you decided, I am going to model mistakes well handled. Whew, just got passionate. Sorry. Reel it in. Okay. So I think in my passionate moment right there, I kind of hit my last couple points, but what do we risk by not failing forward? What do we risk? We risk opportunities. We can never know what roads we would have gone down, what destinations we would have gotten to if we just turned off the car and quit right there. We risk missing out on building new skills, but even greater than that, building character, right? Character is tested in the fire. Having character doesn't really matter when things are easy. Character work, character building shows up when things get hard. We also risk getting trapped in a fixed mindset, and that's really hard to get out of, especially when we do it often. Our growth mindset isn't just something that's always there. I think we'd all like to think we have a growth mindset. Of course we do, right? But that's something that has to be continually stretched. We have to renew it. We can't just hope that it stays. And so by not failing forward, we risk getting trapped in a fixed mindset. And we also risk being stuck in shame and guilt, which is self-condemning. And it's really hard to move anywhere from there. There is so much freedom in failing forward. And ultimately, friends, the fear of failing is self-focused. It turns us inward. It only sees us. It doesn't see those ripples. Can you imagine if you're holding this rock of culture, this beautiful gift that you have to impact people positively, to impact your sphere of influence, and you just hold it and you never drop it in the water and it never has the ability to make its impact? So when we are afraid of taking that risk, we are keeping for ourselves something that could be awesome and great and so much bigger than us and could help people. And so are you willing to do it? Are you willing to say, I'm a leader. I'm accepting the title. I'm accepting the position. I'm accepting the responsibility. So I'm accepting my imperfection. I'm going to model mistakes well handled. I'm going to risk failing forward, dropping that rock in, because I know it will take me to greater places. I know it will take us to greater places. And friend, when I say greater places, maybe even places you could have never imagined. Walt Disney, Michael Jordan, Steven freaking Spielberg. Okay, friends, I hope this is encouraging to you today. I hope if you find yourself in a pattern of really just self-condemnation because you feel like a failure, that you can muster up the grit to turn it around, that you can turn to a friend and say, this is how I'm feeling. Like, will you help me? Reach out for help. Take that first step. You can do it, and it's going to make a difference. Okay, friends, we'll see you next week. Have a good one.